Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the latest round in the made-up sausage wars of Brexit, as the UK and EU agree to kick the can down the road until autumn to avoid complicating the Northern Ireland marching season, I suspect. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, for all the fuss about the 5-year anniversary of the Brexit referendum yesterday, this, I think, is the real one. 5 years ago yesterday, the polling was concerning. It was all going in the wrong direction. A few weeks before, it was going to be a Remain win. It was all a terrible waste of our time. At the time, of course, we didn't know about Cambridge Analytica and how they were powering up for the referendum, or all the Russian bots going to work, or at least I didn't. But 5 years ago yesterday, I still went to bed with some hope. Yes, it was looking very tight at the time. The expectation of a Remain win was gone, but the hope was still there. But it was 5 years ago today that it all went to hell. Nigel Farage went from being a gormless prick to being a gormless prick who was going to be on the news even more now. And what have we achieved in 5 years since we ended our decades-long involvement in the most successful peace project ever devised? We're having a sausage war, apparently. So, weekend before last, the government were reporting to be threatening the EU over its sausage wars, and Boris Johnson had issued a 7-day ultimatum, a deadline for the EU to back down or else. Completely change your third country rules for Britain or you'll be sorry. Naturally, the 7 days passed and there was no backing down. Being fair, this was only reported that way in the Express, and I doubt that the government were genuinely trying to sound tough. In fact, we didn't even have to wait the full 7 days. About a week ago, the government put in a formal request to extend the grace period on the export of chilled meats to Northern Ireland by 3 months. The EU responded immediately that they would consider it, but that if granted, really you should be using this extension to work on a more long-term solution with us. I left the topic alone because I wanted to wait for the formal decision. I wasn't in any serious doubt about what that decision would be. It would make no sense for the EU to have denied it on this occasion. It's a classic case of something that is in the short-term interests of both sides. So of course the extension has been granted. Much like when we kept getting extensions to the Article 50 process. Yes, it was exasperating to some in the EU that every time we went back they would give us the extension. We need this extension. We're nearly there. We just need to sort this thing out. All right, then here you go. Then we'd come back. Did you sort the thing out? No, we spent the last few months just arguing with ourselves, but we need another extension, please. All right. Are you going to use this extension to work on something? Yeah. Then we'd come back. No, we just argued again. We just keep wasting the time. But they kept giving it us anyway, because it wasn't that big a deal. It was a bit of a pain for some people, but the consequences of a no-deal Brexit weren't in anyone's interests. Maybe in Putin's interest, but not in the interest of anyone directly involved. And it's the same thing here, really. One of the problems with Brexit is that we are getting it in instalments. There are a lot of phases to the implementation of Brexit for trade from, say, Britain to Northern Ireland especially. If tensions are still high from the previous implementation, you don't really want to add another layer on top. Now, sure, yes, Boris Johnson is deliberately layering those extra pressures to stoke the tensions and get the EU to keep seeing it as the path of least resistance to allow us to put off the bits of Brexit that we don't like. Absolutely. The situation we're in now, as far as Boris Johnson's concerned, is brilliant. We've got another extension. He's not seeing this extension as ending on the September the 30th, because that's what it nominally is. He is seeing it as up to September the 30th, then we're going to extend it again and again and again. That's how he's seeing it. It's one way of looking at this 3-month extension is to wonder what happens in September. Like I said, we'll be in the same place. One of the stipulations in the agreement with the EU over this extension, just like with the Article 50s, is that we use the time to work on a more long-term solution. Let me have a wild guess about how this is going to go. So, first step, Johnson says we should be able to risk the integrity of the single market and export whatever we like. We're not interested in your single market. the EU say no. This step has already happened. The second step, which is the one we're at, is to say, well, we're not risking your single market just yet, so can we have an extension? Yeah, sure, as long as you have a plan for what you do when you do risk our market. This step may be repeated for a while, like until we actually do pose a serious threat to the single market. This could go on for a little while. Now, fair enough, there are going to be some countries outside of the EU that will get a bit pissy at some point. Just like there will be some countries around the world that will get annoyed at us for not applying checks to EU goods coming into the country. But we're not at that stage yet. So for now, we could say that this step could, in theory, hypothetically, be repeated a few more times. So, we go up to September at the moment, and then we go to December, and so on and so on. Until those Australian meat shipments start coming over, we can do this for a while. But then the third step will be when that happens. It's like, right, you are now risking the integrity of our market. What is your plan? That is what the EU will ask. Our response will be, right, here's our plan, right? We'd like to risk the integrity of your single market because we don't care about it. That is our plan. Then you get the rolling of the eyes, only there will have to be action at that point. Boris Johnson and David Frost don't actually want to implement the export ban at the end of September any more than they want to do it next week. They will ask for yet another extension. Remember, they initially asked for a 2-year extension. Consider that. It's the same thing with the pandemic emergency powers that the government have. They wanted those powers for 2 years. And Parliament went, what? You said this is going to be over in 12 weeks. Why would you want them for 2 years? No, you can have them for 6 months. And then but 6 months later, they roll them over. And then they roll them over again. And no doubt they'll roll them over again. And they'll still get their 2 years. Boris Johnson is planning on doing the same thing here, getting his 2 years. He might even want more than 2 years, but certainly getting that amount of time with mini extensions, if he can't get the big one. Now, they didn't get the 2-year extension. So, like I said, they're just trying to get it in piecemeal. The political calculation is that given that each extension being asked for now is quite short, 3 months, it's harder for the EU to say no to it. And of course, it is right for them to agree to it now, because at the end of the day, this summer is going to see the political heat in Northern Ireland as different groups make it their aim to be the opposite of neighbourly in their taunting of their fellow countrymen and women with the provocative use of colourful banners and vaguely in-step marching to mark some distant event that nobody alive remembers. In addition, the chilled meats in question they are going to Northern Ireland, and they're going to Northern Ireland for sale there. I've not really seen anyone suggesting that a lot of it is being deliberately sent across to Northern Ireland to be diverted to the Republic of Ireland. After all, until 6 months ago, you could have done that anyway. It wasn't a problem. The quality of the products meets the EU standards. Indeed, one of the stipulations from the EU is that the alignment of standards has to be maintained during this extension. That is one of their requirements. At the end of the day, if we agreed to maintain standards long term, we wouldn't have even needed the grace period. The export restrictions could have completely disappeared. But Johnson does want to lower the standards of goods in Britain. Essential component of his Australia deal, as well as obviously the US deal when that's what he really wants. And this is where the can is being kicked too. See, right now, extending the grace periods isn't that big a deal. It's easy for the EU to say, yeah, all right then. David Frost said in a recent speech that he was surprised just how well the EU had responded to threats. Now, when he replaced Gove as Brexit minister, he stated that he intended to use threats to get what he wants. Again, this is a classic case of someone marking their own homework. I'm going to do better than Gove because I'm going to use threats. And then a few months later, he says, I got what I wanted because I used threats. He said this week that the EU should stop threatening Britain now. So I'm not quite sure what he thinks they're threatening us with, by the way. Details a bit light on that one. Presumably he thinks that the EU expecting us to abide by the treaties that he wrote is threatening behaviour. What do you mean I have to do the things I promised to do in a signed legal document? Unnecessary. But Frost is presumably boasting to his cabinet colleagues that the EU has agreed to this extension as a result of his threat to... Not actually sure what he's supposed to have threatened the EU with. Must have been terribly frightening though. But the kicked can will eventually come to rest at a point where Britain actually does diverge from EU standards. Because like if we don't, they don't have a problem. The EU don't have a problem with us if we maintain their standards. There comes a point where we don't maintain those standards. Now at that point, there is no more can kicking. There is a backing down. On one side or the other, there is a backing down. There has to be. If Frost is right, the EU will back down and basically keep allowing us to export products that don't meet their standards in Northern Ireland, because the risk to the single market is seen as less than the risk of violence in Northern Ireland. That is the calculation. That is why they're stoking the tensions. They want to make the political calculation to the EU. Yet you are actually putting a hole in your single market for goods to funnel through. But the alternative is violence in Northern Ireland, which is the lesser of the evils. That's what they're doing, you know. But if Frost is wrong, then the EU will demand that we halt the exports. And if we don't, they will then apply economic sanctions as laid out in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement that Frost also wrote. And businesses aren't working on the assumption that Frost or Johnson will solve the problem either, by the way. I saw a report that Tesco in Northern Ireland, at least, have started to source some of these chilled meat products from their side of the customs border rather than from Britain. Now, you can't change supply lines overnight because people say, well, that's the obvious thing to do, isn't it? Well, yeah, but I definitely expect supermarkets and especially smaller retails to try and do that while they have the safety net of products from Britain still. So basically fix the roof while the sun is shining. And maybe Boris Johnson wouldn't mind that. After all, if Northern Ireland just unilaterally stopped importing sensitive products from Britain, the problem goes away. He could then implement the checks properly and nobody would notice because there'd be nothing to check. You know, it's a little bit like being a nighttime security guard who goes to sleep while they're on the job each night. But as long as no one burgles the place, it's fine. And you may be asking, but what about the British businesses that would lose customers over this? Well, I will refer you to what Boris Johnson said about Brexit business concerns. This extension is not really a decision, it's putting off a decision. It's not putting it off in the hope that a better permanent solution presents itself. It's putting it off to get past a politically sensitive time. This summer, really bad time to ramp up the Northern Ireland Protocol even more, if truth be told. It's an attempt to deal with the issue at a time when there is the best chance of success. Perhaps from the EU's point of view, it is even to try and let people in Britain see what a summer of Brexit consequences does to our attitude. The shortages are starting to appear in the shops. Maybe even to see if Labour will start representing those of us who are against this national self-mutilation. If that is the case, though, I do worry that both the EU Commission and the UK government are a bit delusional. Like, the EU aren't going to carry on letting this go on forever. Johnson and Frost are deluded if they think that this is actually how they can just carry on going for the long term. But we will only move slowly to a Brexit epiphany in this country because there's nobody driving it. Like, at the moment, we don't have the media pointing out all the downsides of Brexit. Even when they do, they just blame the EU for it and they still justify Brexit. We don't have the main opposition party banging on about it. So it's left to individuals to work it out for themselves. Brexit will only be revealed in the UK person by person as the consequences hit home personally. That will take much longer than the 3 months to form a backlash, even with a summer of food shortages. So the EU may also, and I don't know that that is their thinking, this may just be them going, well, we can't do it over summer, we'll sort it out in autumn. But if they are thinking, but maybe public opinion will help us as well, I'm not sure it will. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.